we open this chapter today with Judith telling us her two very significant stories about her experience with the Japanese, both during the war and then subsequently during her actual meeting of some Japanese people. And good day to you, Judith.
Hi, Andy.
I'm so glad that you would share these wonderful stories with us today.
No, I'm fascinated of the Arnhem Land Aboriginal people for pinching that title.
That word.
Because I love the concept of two stories in different languages coming together as one story. That's the challenge. That's the challenge that I faced. When I was doing homestay work with the university here in Southern Cross University, which I did for, 12 years from
the years 2005 to the year 2017.
Right, and I had no less than...
About 25 students, upwards of possibly 30.
You've been doing the record checking
I have
for me,
been.
Thank you.
Yes, indeedy.
And 25 odd students,
At least.
most Chinese and Japanese, but a couple of Indonesians slipped in too.
Yep.
Yes.
Now, dear listener, before we carry on, I just would like to give you a quick write-up from the university of what Homestay is. So Homestay is a cultural exchange between a local individual or family, called a homestay host, and a visiting international student who comes to live as a guest in the home in order to better understand the culture and customs of the region in which they are studying. During a homestay, the host provides the student with all their basic needs, including their own room, food, and study space. In return, the student pays a small weekly fee called a homestay fee to reimburse the host. Over a period of time together, the host assists the student to become familiar in the local area and customs in a relaxed and friendly household setting. The student is also encouraged to share the host family information about their country and their culture. This interaction is what makes Homestay ideal for people looking for a unique cultural experience. And I dare say that's exactly what they had, Judy.
Yeah.
And you got a beautiful poem that you could?
Well, this is one that I wrote for a little lass called Ayiki Tanaka. I'm not probably pronouncing it rightly. And it goes for all of those dear homestay students. And I gave them all little presents, souvenirs and things, and this one was a solid silver little platypus that she just, was gobsmacked when she saw it. So I said, okay, it's yours. And this poem went with it. Something very special. To Ayiki Tanaka from Judith Light, September 2005. Hold this little silver platypus sacredly in your hand. Let it be your Australian totem, your loving protector from this land. When you stroke her silken back, remember, and you will forever be, a part of Australia's story, a precious, shining moment in God's miraculous eternity. Like the unique and lovely platypus, you are a shy but brave survivor. It was a wonderful experience for me. And what the project was that they were doing, most of them, all of them really, were here on a first learning English project. Excellent. Which they have. If they did their time doing English, then and passed it, not too many of them got failed, but I often laugh about that because what they taught me, of course, was my job as a homestay mother. I had to feed them, drive them to uni, and try and socialise them, and always when they were here at home staying with me, they were accommodated here, that I had them speaking English once they were here at home. They weren't allowed to have it. We had some funny times, Andy, like when they were all down in the pool, a bunch of them, some of the other people, students,
all
the
came
group
together.
would come together and they'd be down in the pool and having the time of their lives. And they'd be gabbling away, for me, gabbling
in Japanese.
And I'd be calling out, English, English, and they'd go,
Sorry, Miss Mama Judy, sorry. And I do think that highlights a beautiful point, which is this is your experience with these Japanese people, which was exactly contrary to what you were taught your whole life to expect.
But one of the things they taught me about language, and I have to say, Andy, like most Australians, I'm hopeless with language. And at school, I did French, and I got very good marks for French.
Oui, oui.
Yeah. But when I was in Paris and I opened my mouth and thought, I learned one big lesson. You do not, when in France, Paris, make any attempt to pretend that you have any language, because the French have such fun with the English.
The shredding it.
Of actually just turning you around in circles and dumping. I couldn't even get into the right toilet over there. I remember coming out of one of the toilets and saying to my friend who was travelling with me, gee, they got that's a funny hand basin in there. Idiot, she said, that was the male urinal. Because male and female were both in together. And
oh, Lord.
And I'd washed my hands in the male urinal. That's wrong with everybody else, I think. Yes.
Oh, I love that. And you can spare a bit of empathy for the poor Japanese who they don't even share the same language script, like E and A and I and O, U.
And the thing is that in my attempts to get them to give me translations, one of the things I learned is that, particularly with the Chinese, Japanese, most of their words don't readily translate just to an English word, which in our arrogance, us English-based people think,
everything.
English is the right language, and what's that mean in English? I mean, in proper words, what does that mean?
King's English.
And I found out that the puzzling thing was that they were concepts rather than just simple words.
Yeah, I like that.
And so it's actually a concept that doesn't translate, because you don't have any English words around things like relationships and love and things like that. They have totally different way of expressing those things.
Those intricate, complex, and emotional styles of ideas. We just don't have it.
If you were to say to one of them, "Well, do you love me?" they'd look at you blankly. And, well,
what type of love?
What? Yeah. What do you mean? I mean, what do you? So but
like
it was
that,
a wonderful experience. Yes,
I like it a lot.
But most of all, what it was for me, coming from a childhood with all this propaganda about war. This one I've written in March 2024. The Japs came in Lismore. The Japs are coming any day. In my worst childhood nightmares, that they were on their way, and coming, of course, for me, personally. My first school, kindergarten years, Humpy Bong, Redcliffe, Queensland. I came straight from dairy farm innocence, isolation from wars, hell and fear, and so suddenly and gruesomely they were near. Little schoolboys telling tales of legendary horrors in blood-curdling detail. Japs, everybody knows, cut off women's breasts to fry up for barbecue feasts. Really? So they say. And these very devils are on their way. And we're also surrounded by German spies. Mr. Dabblestein, one of our teachers, had just been taken to jail. The house beside the school where he had lived hid in its veranda rails cannons and telescopes and all sorts of ways to surveil. That poor, gentle immigrant, now interred. And these same boys in lunchtime breaks had us spying on his empty house every day since they took him away. And still the Japs were on the way. War long over here in Lismore, 80 years approximately later, the Japs arrived to a bedroom next to mine in my home, under University Homestay. And what sweeties and gentlemen they proved to be. So respectful, nice and friendly to me. They had no knowledge of Darwin bombing or of any threat Japanese had been to me personally, or of propaganda's place in all our twisted history.
Thank you, Judith. There's a lot of beauty in that piece of writing. You really tell a real good story of what this Japanese experience for you was.
And it was for me very at the time as a child I really did. Most of my nightmares, and I used to have them a lot, were the Japs are coming, and that was the phrase. And you'll see all the propaganda. It was there in black and white, in multiple colour.
Yeah, the posters. The Japs are coming.
The posters, the Japs are coming. You have to fight or die. Things like that.
Firm, hard rhetoric.
No,
like the fear.
there was no... And I grew up with pictures of Japs being, all of them, people with two front teeth,
Oh, very
two
racist.
back teeth, these huge
Cat
almond eyes,
yeah.
and these evil-looking faces. In reality, in this latter day, I find myself hosting lovely-looking people, a bit on the shy side, but mostly because I think of their lack of confidence in being able to, but very, very respectful, they always arrived, of course, with a bunch of presents for you, that their mothers or whatever had helped. And I didn't, in all that time, have one unpleasant incident or problem.
When they were doing the uni homestay, the Japanese would write some really cute little biographics for Judith to, I guess, let you get to know them. And some of these are wonderfully cute. Ryoti Namashodamoto from Japan writes, "I want a Wi-Fi spot if you can. My linguistic skill is very cheap, but I try to talk to you. Finally, I want to be burned. I am allergic to shellfish." And I do think that is absolutely gorgeous.
Says it all.
It does. But also, later on in the episode, we'll read the letters that they sent back from Japan to Judith after their experiences here. And even in that, you can see their English skills have improved greatly, and your impact on their lives and the notions of reconciliation, peace and unity are genuinely there. I can't wait to read some of them back to
And
you.
by the way, Andy, did you know that when I was asked at the uni why I wanted to do homestay and have these students, I said because I was a Baha'i. And of course one of the Baha'i pledges, prayers is one planet, one people, please. And that's, what, so I wanted to reconcile as much as possible on a worldwide basis.
Yeah.
And so I did have that. We have some lovely little letters and cards, both from the girls, and I have to say one of the lovely things, little amusing things about the girls, the modesty of these girls, both Japanese and Chinese.
Oh, this is a great story.
And their diminutive size, compared to walloping great me and Aussie people.
In general,
But two of the lovely stories. One is having two of the little Japanese girls down on Walk the Wall at Ballina, because we used to take them as scenery and socialising as much as possible. And these two lovely little girls got themselves down on the sand next to the wall at Ballina there and took off their thongs, and they're jumping around on the sand and saying they had never been barefoot on sand in their lives.
Wow.
And then they ran into the water with their thongs in their hands, crying out, "I Aussie!
Yeah.
I Aussie! We Aussie!" And I asked them afterwards, but you do have beautiful sand and water at home? And they said, "Oh, but so dirty, so dirty."
Couldn't swim.
Wouldn't dream of going in the water.
Wow.
Also, the modesty thing with them about, I said to the lass running the whole, Lisa Bartholomew running the whole program, "Lisa, they do their washing, but I never see any underwear. You know, they put their clothes out on a line. I've got a lovely clothesline on the veranda here, and but I never see any underwear." And she said, "Go and look in the cupboard." And there in their cupboard was this tiny, tiny little squares of bras and tiny, tiny little sort of G-stringy panties
Little pant things.
Really, really pretty and really tiny, and hanging up to dry inside the cupboard because they could not bear to have their underwear on show or seen by anyone. That would be terrible, you know.
It's a very big cultural difference to us
yes.
Australians that just hang it all out.
So there's this one, "Dear Judith," and it's got "Dear Heart Judith." "I'd like to express my sincere thanks for what you've done. I was wholly at a loss what to do at first, but you were very kind to come to contact with me. Thank you for your kindness, and I learned a lot about Australia and went to various places and your culture. I will always remember my stay with you. I really can't thank you enough. It was nice meeting you. With love from Mizzou." And there's lovely drawings too. There's a drawing of Mizzou and a drawing of me.
And this letter is from Ayaki, who stayed with Judith. And she titles this one, "Human Relationships and My Decisions." "I'd like to talk about human relationships and my decision. At first, just when I arrived here, I couldn't speak English at all because I was confused about everything. Whatever I saw was a new world, and whatever I did was the very first thing I did. Study trip, homestay, this beautiful view, new friends, and so on. Everything surprised me. But the very second day when I came here, I just accustomed to the life. I got along with my host, and I could enjoy study a lot every day. My host Judith is very kind and a nice woman, and she taught me a lot of things, and she was always together with me, and she took care of me. It always made me happy. And my host Judith introduced me to her many friends, and all Australian people were very friendly. Originally, I like human relationships, so I learned human relationships in my university. But really, I thought again, Human relationships is big property which I can experience. And at the same time, I learned I could try to speak English because I was supported by many people around me. My host Judith, her friends, teachers, my friends, and family. I appreciate everyone and everything around me. I really did think that I was glad to meet my host and everyone. Every day it had been like a good dream. I'll never forget this memory. But whenever I talk with someone, I realized that my English was poor, and whenever I did conversation, I'd like it to be able to speak English much more. And my feeling is that I'd like my dream to come true, that if I'd like to get a job to speak English, then stronger than I can until now. This 2 weeks are worth trying to think about my dreams for the future. Thank you everyone, and thank you for everything. I'll never waste this time. I did think I'd like to try and study English more. Thank you, from your daughter, Ayaki. Isn't that beautiful?
That's beautiful, and it makes me think too of the reason they all had came here to learn was that I found out discussions with them. Well, why were they having to learn English? Well, because back home they couldn't get good jobs if they couldn't speak English. That's back in Japan and back in China. I don't know about the Korea so much, but they literally had to have a good command of English to get good jobs.
And that takes such intelligence.
And that's the way English has dominated the political and
Cultural landscape.
cultural world.
But it's really nice to see the back and forth of culture where for you, your shift on the Japanese notions and also their shift. I got this beautiful poem that Ayuki wrote. I want to read this one to you, Judith. So this come with Ayuki's letter.
We're in the business of poems and getting a poem from Japanese. That's not bad.
This is a nice one from Ayuki. Australia, the land of Oz, the great southern continent. Australia proper. Australia common. Australia other. Australia cheeky. Australia, lucky country for some. Qantas land, Australia containing Queensland, nothing to do with royalty. New South Wales, and oblivious to any other. Victoria, somewhere between New South Wales, South Australia and Tasmania. And the W, the excitement state, bigger than Texas and bigger than an A, almost as in US-Australian. Plus Northern and National Territories, we have it all. And immigrants are ours. Wave your plastic flags and sing, we are it all, Australia.
That's gorgeous.
That's lovely. Nice little poem.
Yes. I like the confusion in there too, but it's a very great insight by her into this country that she was just visiting. And see, that's also in there some of the examples of how the things don't translate. Like she's talking about human relationship. She said
a big property which I can experience. A big property in which I can experience.
So, and given the difficulty maybe translating the word property too into whatever she was trying to say, but she might be trying to say what we would take as subject, but I don't know. It probably isn't quite that way because it's also a country.
Yeah.
So it is a property.
It is.
And when you look at the way...
how we acquired our property.
Yes.
Which I guess goes back to the title too.
And again, this whole confusion with language, I can't fail to reflect on the part it had to play in our whole settlement of this country. We, as you know, I have my concerns about that.
Indeed.
And
indeed.
The sort of, one of the good things is there are little stories about where the Aboriginal people managed to fool people by what they called things and what they named things as. I believe kangaroos is something that was never actually properly translated, but I'd get a bit more detail on that. But it also makes me very if you look now at the music, the Aboriginal music that is emerging in language, and how it moves even those of us who can't understand the language, because for them they're giving a particular feeling, concept that they're coming through.
Energy,
for them
emotion.
it's a different concept from even the whole thing of country and land. There's something that you can chop up into pieces and put barbed wire around and say that bit's mine.
Yeah.
I don't think they've got any explanation for that or any
No
sort of
word.
description for it.
No
you know?
description, yeah.
And also somewhere where they used to hunt, and that's where their food came from. Suddenly there's these barbed wire fences. They must have been a language in themselves. That and the whole boundaries.
Yes.
I don't know that any way of describing that makes sense would have made sense in
Across
their
the
own
cultures,
language,
yeah.
across the cultures, you know.
Yeah, well, if you think something like Japanese and Australian, two very different languages, but with all of the resources of a modern world to assist, and we still see the division in translation, I can't even imagine what, as you're saying, Aboriginal cultural language into English at that time. Absolutely baffling. A very good point.
Well, I'll just
Very good point.
I'll take one word: thief. And their tendency for white people like my grandfather, who was a white settler, and who also was a magistrate in charge of the law in his area, up in the Dalby area, where, as you know, in some of my other poems and that, my mother was born, and
On the property of Bonnecord.
And the whole concept in those early books that we've been reading for reconciliation of the Aboriginals being thieves.
Very common.
They're thieves. They take anything.
Taking the sheep.
And yet, so what were we? That we walked in and took the country itself.
Very good point.
So we weren't called thieves. We were settlers, or what was
Squatters.
it? What gave us the right? Yes, squatters. Which of those words gave us a right, other than being English or whatever?
In our research of that topic through Reading of Reconciliation, they do often say a lot that because they were heathenistic, or they didn't believe in the Christian God.
Oh, yes.
Technically, it wasn't stealing because they were uncivilized.
And had no concept of morality.
Anything.
Give me a break.
Yeah.
Morality. How's that for
Right.
in the settlement of going out and killing people because they took a
sheep or
a
whatnot.
sheep, or and hanging them from.
Or doing all sorts of horrible things, which
Yeah.
I guess leads back to what you're saying about the Japanese, the stories of your childhood with the breasts being cut off for barbecues, and that type of savagery actually echoes back to that other topic of
So that's
1800s
why I love
Australia.
that concept of contact,
Yeah, connecting.
connecting of two mouths, two cultures, two
Tell one story.
people's expression, two languages, and of course more than two, because Australia we had something like 400.
A lot, yeah.
And
many.
of Aboriginal, and that which were just written off as being barbaric
Yeah.
ramblings.
Yeah.
Yes, they weren't. And it wasn't the Queen's English, which I was raised on, I'm afraid. And even for me, as a child of English parents, etc., and I, at school, got prejudiced because I had a pommy voice, and I was considered to be an upstart because I had a pommy voice.
Yeah, you got.
And I never felt less like a pommy. What are you, American? And no one ever picked me as Australian.
Wow, wow! Your British accent sounded like anything but British to the actual British. You got bullied at school for it, and that again, it's interesting because with the bullying and the whatnots, like your teacher, Mr. Dabblestein, in that poem, was being bullied. Was he being
Well,
bullied by the students? What was the story
no, he
there?
wasn't even there anymore. Poor man, he'd been interred
Really?
because he was German, and the war was coming, and so our German had been God knows how long in this country, but
So
he and his
Japanese
family
and
all
Germans,
interred. Yeah,
they get
Japanese Germans
arrested,
were all interred.
and they call it interred
For the yes,
for the duration of
it
the
is
war.
imprisoned. Yeah, imprisoned, and some of them I think were allowed to work in some situations, but yeah.
Wow. Well, so it permeated a large portion of the whole society at that time. It was great disruption. And it is fascinating. It's fascinating that, as you say, when you talk with Japanese students, that they knew nothing. They knew nothing of the bombing. They knew nothing of the
As
war.
far as they were concerned, that all of a sudden the Allies came and dropped bombs on Hiroshima for no reason at all. And that was the whole,
Just happened.
yeah.
And funny, I think you mentioned it in a previous episode that you not living near Darwin, living on the coast, when Darwin was bombed, they also just said, oh.
Oh well, likewise, propaganda was we were told there was nothing much to worry about. When you see the film Australia, and see the extent of the bombing in Darwin, etc., that's a shock to me because we really were told, oh, don't worry, there's just been a few planes go over. That good old home propaganda,
It is fascinating, this mirroring of propaganda both across all these cultures, and I guess back to even Aboriginal stuff from the earlier days that we have looked at. So there might be a thread there. We will read the propaganda piece back. I might read it to the audience because I do think it fits really well with this story.
And I'm also writing another poem at the moment, not ready yet, but it's about language and how language is loaded, and that it's very political, and all the words that are, and I mean, settler is one of the ones, that is, we settled.
We settled.
We settled?
It's just It's a calm word, isn't it?
Yes.
There's nothing calm about that type of settling.
No.
Now to a few more letters from our Japanese friends.
Dear Judy, it has already been 1 week since I came back to my home in Toyama. I have a good news. I have a test in love. I gave a test in love and passed perfectly from level to level. I think of you every day while I listening to music of Merakai.
Merakai, really? Yeah, your friend? Yeah.
We just lost him
Yeah, we
not so very
did.
long ago. I treasure all the happy memories during my stay over there. I had a lot of great experience because of you. I am truly grateful for hospitality and kindness. With lots of love, Ikuyu. P.S. I hope you like the photos I have enclosed.
And this one's again from, it's funny, this is another IQU, but it's spelt slightly different.
Yes.
It's, I guess, like Andrew, Drew, and Andy. All right, so this one's from IQU. I was very anxious to live for 2 weeks in another country and with other people, but you actually understood my imperfect English and you were very friendly, so I was very relieved. I have lots of great memories in my heart, spelt H-A-R-T, watching 2 DVDs, nice meals, hearing Quaker singing voice, and talking to me in Ballina, taking me to Ballina to see the sunset. The best memory was introducing me to a lot of your friends. I could talk with native Australian people because of you. I was so happy. You explained a lot of language to me. You didn't, but I couldn't understand everything, so still I regret not understanding more and speaking more, though I could communication with you. I am really, really sad, but I had a lot of great times with you. I can see that you have a deep love. You are a special to David. Japanese people don't have such a strong concern for death as you. I have the greatest respect for you. I'm really glad to meet you. I will treasure these memories. I will never forget spending time with you and your lovely smile and when you sing a song. And I will absolutely write to you from Japan. Thank you for your help and I own a lot of you. Take care of yourself. From okay, you.
She owns a lot of me. I love that.
Yeah,
She's
yeah,
got
it's the
me in tears here.
The translation.
Okay. Got another one, Andy.
Yeah, the singing. I tell you what.
And then I'm
Did you
thinking
do
about the
singing with them?
propaganda poem at some stage, but yeah, me singing was the choir. You see,
Yeah.
they were involved with the choir, for 20
Yeah.
odd years.
So
I
they'd come and
ran the
watch?
reconciliation choir, our voices together, and many of the times and events that we went to over the years, the students were here. In fact, on one occasion, also at the Lantern Parade.
Oh wow.
And we had a lovely experience where the people running the Lantern Parade we had always, the Baha'is had always carried the goanna, because we made the first goanna for the Lantern Parade, which is our
regional totem.
Totem. And that's for Buntalang. And so, and on this occasion, we were part of the show at the beginning of the thing, and what we had was the Aboriginal, the goanna, and doing a dance with the rainbow serpent.
Oh wow.
And the Japanese boys here, my students, they carried the serpent and did all the serpent part, and my Australian Baha'is and that carried the goanna. And they enjoy that, goodness me. But the whole thing of lanterns, of course, Chinese and...
Fits, they would have loved that.
Yes, but oh, goodness, what a night of excitement that was.
Well, sounds like it would have been beautiful. I have another one to read to you here from Kazu. It says, "Thank you, Judy," and it has some Japanese writing as well. "I thought it was very good to see you. I can't possibly put my thanks into words. I would like to express my deepest gratitude to you for having been invited to your party, and I'll never forget you." From Kazu. Nice and short and sweet and beautiful.
Maybe, Andy, it's time to slip that propaganda poem in. What do you think?
You know what? I think it's a perfect time. And this is a propaganda piece written by Judith Light, and I'll recite this one. "The Legend of They in Propaganda's Sway" by Judith Light, 2023. Propaganda, dictionaries say, is loaded language to produce emotional rather than rational response. Once upon a time there was an old woman, a mother of mine indeed. When I asked her about injustice, man's cruelty to man, persecution and exploitation in travail of both female and male, her fairy tale assurance to me was, "My dear, they would never let that be. Not God, the one omnipotent, bountiful He. Through life's journey all grown up, I worked it out, I came to see. She meant our leaders, the lawmakers, those powerful men at the top. Looking back down history, sadly it came to me, she was fooled. There was no such protection. She never saw the gap between say and do. There was no insurance, reward, or fair pay at the end of their long, hard, weary day for their loyal, obedient slavery, offered up to that legendary they. Mother never lied, but she always quoted proverbially, like, 'Cheats never prosper.' They used to say, poetic license her proof, what is oft enough repeated must be the truth. Good and bad, right and wrong, come to us in verse and song. Prayerful enlightenment can show our path, language directing, inspiring our day. But beware, the voice of propaganda always was, and still is, everywhere, to exploit our inner greed, dress it up as